Test, test. I'd like to call to order the August 10th meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. This is our first of 2 meetings per month in which we receive mostly informational presentations as well as discuss and deliberate future decisions. There are also action voting items required on timely issues or to meet time-constrained deadlines. Our meetings observe all legal requirements and our district policies to the best of our ability and understanding. Our detailed agendas and related public documents are posted on the district website for public access. That will be in the report for the first session next month, so I don't have to read that again. Yay, you all save time. Will you all join me in the pledge of the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have attendance, please, Ms. Martin?
We have 8 directors present tonight. Ms. Trowbridge is absent. We have a quorum in place.
Okay. Before the approval of agenda, I want to make note that a request has been made to remove item 5D just for further discussion in executive session for the board. Are there any other changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes to the agenda.
So can I have approval to approve the agenda with the exception of item 5D, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, we're approved. So starting with commentary on district activity, superintendent's comments. Dr. Hartman.
Good evening. Couple things. Last week was a really exciting week in the district. At least I think so. It was our new teacher induction. One of my favorite weeks of the year, although it does sort of signal the end of summer. But we welcomed, I believe, 22 new professional staff members that were here Monday through Thursday last week with all types of professional development activities taking place. I believe I've shared this with the board in previous years, but one of the things I really appreciate and really like about how we provide orientation to our new staff and we welcome our new staff is that it's an all hands on deck effort. It's not 1 or 2 people who run the show. We have a whole team. That's not just administrators either. We have a new teacher induction committee that's made up of other teachers in the district who are there throughout the week who help out with various aspects of the different activities that are going on. So it was just a great week to see the eagerness and the excitement in our new staff and getting them ready to start their careers with us here at CV. So with that being said, and I did want to name one name specifically. Mel Upton is a member of our administrative team who one of her tasks is she really coordinates new teacher induction. So even though I said it's an all hands on deck effort, she does a lot of the behind the scenes work, getting everything ready to go. So wanted to recognize her as well. So related to that, we have a few new staff members to introduce this evening who were here with us last week. Some of these staff members, some of these new employees I'm going to introduce tonight were approved at previous meetings and they weren't able to make the board meeting. Several are on the agenda for this evening for approval. So as I call your name, if you can just stand up and give a little wave, and then I'll briefly introduce you. So first up we have Jillian Smith. Jillian is going to be a long-term sub-learning support teacher at the high school. She's a 2023 graduate of York College with a degree in middle-level science education and special education. And she previously has worked at News Story, Phoenix Academy within the School District of Lancaster, and Collegium Charter School. So welcome, Jillian. Not to be confused with Jillian Smith, next we have Jessica Smith. Jessica? Jessica is going to be an autistic support teacher at Brownstown. She's been substituting in Conestoga Valley for the past several years, serving in various short-term and long-term substitute roles at the elementary level. She has her bachelor's degree in elementary education and special education from Millersville University. So, welcome. Next, we have Emma Williams. Emma's going to be a second grade teacher at Fritz Elementary. Emma has her bachelor's degree in early childhood education from Millersville. She has served as a long-term substitute for the past several years in the Warwick School District. Welcome, Emma. Alexis Kelpley. Alexis is going to be an ELA long-term sub at the middle school. Alexis graduated from Millersville this past May with her Bachelor's of Science in English Education. She student taught in the Warwick School District this past May, and now she's joining us here at CV, so welcome. Milagros Richardson. She's also going to be an English Language Arts long-term sub at the middle school. Since 2023, Ms. Richardson has worked for the Nativity School in Harrisburg, serving in the roles of reading and ELA teacher, lead teacher, and dean of academics. Prior to working for the Nativity School, she served as a long-term substitute in the Chambersburg area school district. She holds her Bachelor's of Science in middle-level education with an ELA concentration from Shippensburg University. So welcome, Milagros. And finally, we have Diane Thomas. Diane is going to be our new music teacher at the middle school. Diane has her bachelor's degree in music education from Lebanon Valley College and a master's degree in music education from the University of Florida. From 2014 to 2025, she was a music teacher in the Framingham Public School District in Massachusetts, teaching band, chorus, and general music at the elementary and middle school levels. This past year, after relocating back to Pennsylvania, she has served as a long-term substitute in the Hempfield School District, as well as being an active volunteer here at CV with her high school marching band. So we're happy to bring her on full-time at the middle school. Welcome, Diane. And that concludes my comments for this evening.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hartman. Welcome to all the new teachers. We're glad to have you aboard. Are there any board comments this evening on district activity, which of course there hasn't been a whole lot yet, but that's going to change a lot within the next 2 weeks. So any comments from board members on anything going on?
I attended the induction luncheon last week and enjoyed meeting some of the new teachers there. And thanks for the invite, being able to represent the board there.
That's awesome. All right. No more comments. We'll move on to presentations, with the first one being our school-wide plan for high school with Dr. Fox. And Dr. Mann and Dr. Kozer. Sorry.
You said me first.
Yeah. You just got to the table first.
Yeah,
Dr. Fox.
Okay, are we on? Yes. All right, good evening. Every August, we bring to the board an overview of our school-wide plans for continuous improvement. So you're going to get the whirlwind tour of the K-12 continuous improvement plans. Specifically, the high school's plan is the only one that actually needs to be board approved. The other ones, we want you to know what's going on, how we got to that information, but we will be seeking approval of the high school's plan next Monday evening. So tonight's our overview night. So you know what's going on in the district. So when we are creating our school-wide plans, all of our buildings spend time identifying those areas for continuous improvement, right? We want to be a learning organization that is constantly evaluating what's working and where we can strengthen our learning systems. And so we always start with our vision, our mission, and our shared values. That's the first place we go when we're getting together in our school-wide plan teams that include parents, teachers, community members. Some of you have been a part of those teams in the past. And we start with our vision, our mission, and our values. And one of the things that we really focus on when we go into the planning process is the theme that you can see highlighted throughout all three, this idea of meeting the needs of all of our students. That is really at the base of our school-wide planning process. We toss our data 100 different ways. We look at all of the different subgroups of students. We look at cohorts of students. How did our 5th graders do in 6th grade and in 7th grade? We look at it a lot of different ways, but it comes back to really planning for all of our students and their individual needs. Our schools take a look at even down to each individual student and how they are growing and progressing, and is there anything that we need to change or do differently. So as we're entering into this school-wide planning process, that's the very first place we start, is taking a look at those guide rails that have been established as part of our district vision, mission, and values.
And it should not come as a surprise that our next stop would be our profile of CV learner and our instructional model. So after you center yourself on your values, then we take a look at these two areas and how they talking about the profile being the North Star, how those areas guide us as we go through and implement these things. You know, we have the 5 competencies of the profile. In looking at the instructional model, as you look at the graph up there, you can see the instructional model goes around the profile, and those focus areas are learner design, driven design, rigorous, engaging learning experiences, positive school climate. Those 3 areas anchor us to those values and cores that Jill just talked about. And as we work through, and she said about flipping, looking at data and tossing in different ways, same thing, same type of thing. Looking at the data, how has it come out of these areas, PVAS, PSSA, Keystone data, local data, and so forth. So, you know, shouldn't be a surprise that this would be the next stop.
So then after we've evaluated those 3 really big priority areas and what our data says about how we're doing in each of those areas, we check in on our comprehensive plan. You know, we've said so many times in CV that plan is a living, breathing document. It's a real document that we're working from each and every day. And so our school teams, they take a look at where the district is heading, those goals and initiatives that we're working on as we build out our infrastructure within the district. And from there, they start to really identify in what areas have their staff, their students made progress, where are areas that we can identify for focus and some more support.
And following that, just to share with you that Pennsylvania has the essential practices, which is, again, PDE's vision of what success looks like. And if you look at this, it shouldn't come as any surprise. It really lines up to what we're doing here at Conestoga Valley. So success breeds success. And so it kind of really validates a lot of the work that's being done locally, that at the state level, you're seeing the same type of information, same type of focus and guidance and so forth. So when you think about evidence-based practices, the state has that, and we're falling right in line with that. And so, again, it affirms what we're doing and makes sure that it affirms that, as well as keeps us guided and rooted in the fact that we're following the PDE's guidelines.
And so after we've taken a look at those really big guiding practices and information, our teams get into the business now of selecting what those focus areas are going to be. And you know, we've brought a lot of these things to you over the years. We make sure that we are implementing with fidelity, with depth. We're making sure that our teachers have the support that they need. And that's how we really identify what those goals are for continuous improvement at each building. So across the elementary, our team really gets together. We align those practices. So again, across the 4 schools, students have similar experiences, not identical. Every building, every community is different, but we do want to guarantee that they're having similar experiences across the 4 schools. And so this slide just kind of gives you the high level overview of the elementary focus areas this year. So those instructional model areas, big ideas, and then specific focus areas and strategies.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not see. You said all 4 elementaries, but I only see Fritz, Leola, and Smoketown on that.
So Fritz, Leola, and Smoketown are the only ones that are required to write the plans because they receive Title I money for those plans. Brownstown is with us and they have the same goals. They just don't have to actually go into the state portal and write a formal plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So at elementary this year, again, not a whole lot has changed. These have been pretty consistent and pretty steady topics that we've been working on as part of actually the last 5 years of comprehensive planning.
And similarly, at the middle school, you'll see it looks almost identical. You know, again, as Jill said, you know, each community is a little different, but when we're looking at this pre-K to 8, there's a really consistent theme that goes throughout. And so, again, big ideas and so forth when you look down through there, very similar to the middle school or to the elementary schools, and with focus and the big ideas in the focus areas. The high school, the next plan is a little different. They're on a little different track. And Matt's here to talk a little bit about that. But again, similar format, similar layout, focus areas, big ideas, and then working our way down through and looking at those focus areas and the strategies to get us there. The high school this year is through the targeted support, which Matt is going to talk about in a minute, is the first time we have to submit this to PDE. And as a result of that, it gives us a little different flavor, but not so much.
Yeah, so just again, a reminder of what TSI means, and this is why I'm kind of in it, because this is through our federal programs. This is tied into our ESSA legislation, so that's one of the areas that I oversee in the district. TSI stands for Targeted Support and Improvement, and every year what the Department of Education does is they look at the PSSA, the achievement data, and the PVAS, the growth data, and they run all the high schools in the state through their formula. And so that's the first thing. How are our students doing when you plot that on plot that point on a graph of growth and achievement? And if the high schools don't hit a certain threshold, they automatically go through then for additional factors to be considered. Graduation rate, attendance, some of those really critical factors that we know impact school success. And so for CVHS, this is our second year in designation. Specifically, we were designated for our students with disabilities subgroup, specifically looking at the graduation rate, the achievement, the growth, and the attendance of that subgroup. That's why Dr. Fox's plan looks a little different than the K-8, because it really zeroes in on that specific subgroup for which we were identified as a TSI school. So we'll talk you through that plan in a little bit more detail because it does get really, really focused. Where the K-8 plans, the strategies are serving a much wider, broader audience of students. We know that we have to really zero in and make sure that we're identifying what's going to work best for our students with disabilities at the high school.
So the summary sheet that's on here really kind of focuses on the areas that Dr. Kozer just talked about, from our achievement goal, our growth, graduation rate, and our attendance goal. So 2 Januaries ago, we sat down as a building team and we designed and planned out these goals that we've been working towards. So tonight you're going to hear the progress of these. This has actually been something we've worked on for the last 2 school years. So we're looking at our achievement goal of being about a 5.83% growth over the next couple of years. This is year 2 of 3, as well as our growth, our PVAS, which is our academic growth, going from a negative 3.37 to a positive 2.0. So that's students showing growth on the Keystone exams. And then our graduation rate and attendance rate. So what we're looking at is our graduation rate going up with students with disabilities, 1% over those 3 years, as well as our attendance rate going up 2% per year over those 3 years. So this is year 2 that we're working our way towards those goals. We've made incremental gains that you're going to hear a little bit about with each of those areas, but this is the goals that we've designed the last 2 years. So the essential practices slide is essentially our roadmap. We've been using this to really drive a lot of our action steps. And when we've worked with kind of different consultants throughout kind of the essential practice design, we really fall under categories of curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization. And what we did is, as a team, came up with different action steps. So from writing our curriculum all the way through looking at things like co-teaching and different data literacy components, we're able to really make a roadmap to address those different standards, but not just focusing on just students with disabilities that we're designated for. This really is for all the students. These are good general practices to have in classrooms and really something that will drive us forward as a school to really improve and continue to grow as a building. So the last piece of this really kind of focuses on some of the highlights we've had over the last year. Our co-teaching model has really been successful at the high school, and what we've done is a lot of our trigger classes or our keystone classes we have with a special educator and a general educator within those classrooms. So they've worked together. We've done some trainings on how and what successful co-teaching looks like. We've done some after-school remediation sessions leading up to the Keystone exams, and we actually, with the results coming back this summer in early July, we had almost 50% of our students who retook the exams, which means the first time they didn't receive a proficient score. We had 47% pass it the second time through, which is higher than most of the area districts around us. We looked at our data literacy. So in order to be able to understand the data, we've got to be able to talk about it, understand it, and be able to kind of communicate it out with families and students. We looked at our growth measurements using our department chairs that teach some of those subject areas that are tested. and look at how students are growing, when they're growing, and what kind of improvements we can make for that. And then the last one is something, again, this kind of a bigger view, is how do we improve our attendance? How do we get students into the building? And we looked at things like the SAPE, which is kind of the state level version of improving and getting students into the building, and ways that we can improve attendance across the board. So these highlights really kind of align with different things within our plan, but we know that we're kind of continuing working towards our overall goal of eventually being out of TSI, but understanding a lot of these things that we're doing benefit us beyond just the plan that the state is looking for us to submit.
I think that last one on attendance is extremely important. So my question sort of is, we talk about graduation rates. That's based on students in 12th grade that make it all the way through, is that right?
Correct.
But what about the ones who dropped out before that? Are you addressing the dropout rate, or does that come under attendance?
Yeah, a lot of that would still be under attendance and dropout rate within those. We don't have too many dropouts. The thing that makes it a little difficult is this, it's actually based on a cohort, and it's a 4th and 5th year cohort. So legally, we have some students in our special ed program that are legally allowed to stay to 21, and we actually get dinged from the state for students staying longer than their cohort. So legally, it's the best thing for them to do, but because they're staying a little bit longer to get their education, the state considers them that they're beyond their cohort. So that's been something that...
That is a little skewed.
It is, right. And it's one of the, it's, again, not a lot of students, even students that are dropping out, but it does impact the TSI plan with that. So when we looked at a lot of our data, majority of our students who fall into certain cohorts beyond just the 4-year program are legally staying because they're in our special ed program, like our life skills and some of those types of things.
You talk about increasing the graduation rates of students with IEPs. Do you know what their graduation rate is as compared to the whole?
Yeah, they're in the low 90s right now. So they're about 91%, 90%, and as a whole, we're about 96%, 97%, yeah.
Well, that's not terrible, but it's room for improvement.
Yeah, and a majority of those that we found that did not meet that level in that sense of it were the students that are in our life skills programs that are staying till 21. And it's one of those things that if we can improve in some of those other areas, the state might not identify that area as a need, but that's also something that legally we're just following what the state has provided us the ability to do.
Thank you.
So here's what happens next. Tonight you get the overview, the presentations, review of the draft that was in your attachments, and then we also did just a short summary. If you weren't into the 30-some page detailed document, we did put a little summary together for you as well. Then next week, the plan will be on the consent agenda, unless anybody had specific questions that you wanted us to address next week, but we will be seeking approval on the 17th. We then have a big portal that we have to enter all of this in and have everybody sign off and submit and upload the board president's signature. So we need to have all of that completed by September 1st. And then over the course of this next school year, we'll be implementing those plans and checking back with the school teams on how they're doing. So they have to actually set data targets every quarter that we check in on. How's it going? Did you meet your target? Are you following through on your action steps? And that's our work that we do then over the course of the school year. Any questions for us on the high school's plan or any of the information? Okay.
Thank you much. And Jill, you're hanging out for the Vector Solutions piece of the presentation, yes?
Yes. So Vector Solutions, what we are seeking approval for on consent agenda next week is contract with Vector. One of the things that we need to do within the school district is a lengthy list of mandated trainings for our staff that recur on a cyclical basis. So things like mandated reporter trainings, trauma-informed trainings, school safety trainings, a lot of things that come up over and over again, and we have recently been working with this vendor. They have just a comprehensive catalog of these trainings. So not only do they have the online asynchronous trainings, but the trainings that are there are really high quality. They're trainings where you don't just go and press a recording and then go about your business. You have to actually sit and interact and answer questions and do a case study and choose your own adventure type thing in some of the trainings, be a part of and really understand the content of what's happening. So they're a quality vendor as well. And then the other piece with Vector is that it has the ability to do the pushing out of the training. So we don't, right now our HR department monitors every month who's up for their mandated reporter training, and they send out an email, and this will automate all of those notices to our staff. So once we put the date in every 3 years, it's going to send that out to the staff, and it takes a lot of work off of the HR department, the professional learning people in the district as well. The good news is also that this is actually going to save us about $6,000. So right now we have a video resource library through Frontline, and those trainings are just not as quality, and they don't have the ability to push them out on a regular basis. And so by going with Vector, it's actually a savings. Yes, trying to make Adele happy this year. That we will be looking at as well. So we would be seeking approval next week on the consent agenda to go with Vector. I think when we were talking to the representative, there are only 3 school districts in Lancaster County that do not currently use Vector. It's a really common provider for these trainings.
And if I can piggyback on that, I'm very familiar with Vector. It used to be called Safe Schools. Used it in my previous district, and it is sort of the gold standard of like compliance type trainings that you have to do. It's fairly easy to implement, and if you look at the total cost compared to other professional development platforms and other platforms we use, that's fairly very affordable, and it keeps us. I've shared that book from the IU of all the state mandated trainings that we have to do annually. This organizes it for us, and you can customize it for specific employee groups too. So for example, there's a track for, there's certain trainings we have to do with all coaches, paid coaches and volunteer, that's required by PIAA. There's a PIAA approved training track in there that when we bring on a new paid coach or volunteer coach, we can just assign them that track in here, and it's taken care of. Right now, we're pulling kind of a piecemeal trainings together from different places and different sources. So I just want to vouch for it. I've been hopeful to bring Vector in since I've been here, and this was the year to do it, and we're pretty excited about it. So I just wanted to mention that, and yeah, it's a great tool. It's one of the better professional development tools I've worked with. So I think Dr. Kozer's estimate of saving $6,000 is probably on the conservative end, because we're thinking what it's going to replace in Frontline. But I think there's a lot of other trainings out there we've been pulling from that we're not even thinking about. So.
Absolutely.
And I saw it just goes up 5%. That's like fixed cost, like each year. It looks like it goes up.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Is there anything that, when you think about how quickly things are moving, and of course AI getting involved in all kinds of stuff, I always wonder, like, is this another one of those things where in 2 years we might be looking to, is there anything that Vector doesn't do that something else does? It's just, I guess that's my question.
So we actually created a whole giant spreadsheet of all of our platforms, to Dr. Hartman's point of what do people have to log into when they're onboarding as a new employee? What do they have to log into for Chapter 49 requirements, which is a whole other, I mean, we list out our coaches, our facilities, we listed out all the different groups of employees and the platforms that we have. And so we were really intentional in making sure that there was a need for this. So there are a couple. Red Rover can handle some of the things, but when we looked at the Red Rover piece, it wasn't as clean cut. So if we wanted to do mandated reporter training through Red Rover, which is our hiring software, you have to create a custom course, and then from the custom course, you can do it, but it wasn't created to do that, if that makes sense. Where Vector was like super easy. Here's the link and go. So we really did try to map out to answer that exact question, and we found that this is a really specific set of needs that it covers for the district.
Okay. Yeah, if it replaces a couple additional logins, that's never a bad thing for teachers, for sure.
Exactly.
Any other questions related to the vector? Is that for approval next?
On the consent
on the
agenda
consent
next week.
agenda for next week, okay,
Yep.
gotcha. Okay,
Okay,
thank you,
thanks.
Dr. Kozer. Up next is the first part of our agenda for public comment. If anybody has public comment on anything on tonight's agenda? Okay. Then we have our action discussion items, which are items A through G. Again, 5D is just being removed for some additional consideration tonight. Any questions on any of those agenda items that you're seeing there?
Can I make one motion for all of them, or?
No,
With the exception of 5D, it'll have to be.
no, it's action discussion.
Oh, gotcha, right, not consent. Yep. So no additional questions? So yeah, superintendent's report, cut and dry. Anything you want to add there, Dr. Hartman?
Just new approvals so we can start the school year fully staffed.
Yep. Do we need to go through these one by one?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha,
so we need a motion to approve.
gotcha, each one. So motion to approve the superintendent's report tonight?
I move to approve the superintendent's report.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, your report's approved. Then you have the local independent audit with Ms. Hunsinger.
Okay, so this is more of a formality than anything else, but typically our process is when we close out a fiscal year, I come to you in October and present a summary of what our financial status is. Then the auditors complete their audit and they come to you in November for a final review update, and then we get your approval. So unfortunately, this year, the timeline got extremely skewed. We were prepared for them. We were all hands on deck, but we only just received our audit report for the 24-25 year on July 20th. So as a formality, just want to go through and highlight for you that as far as the auditor's opinion goes, they gave us a clean opinion, an unqualified opinion, which states that they reviewed our financials and internal controls, and they had no findings, no errors. They also did a single audit, which refers to an audit of all of the federal programs that we have. And we also got a clean, unqualified opinion on the federal programs with regard to our accounting for them and compliance with those regulations, and then also with the internal controls. So once we received their report, all agencies that require us to submit an audited financial statements were presented with the audited financial statements immediately. So back in October of 2025, that's the presentation where I gave you the overview of our finances. I didn't know that we necessarily wanted to go over that again. I certainly can if you'd like, or bring anything back to you in more detail. But that slide shows you what I presented to you back in October. And then the auditors did make some minor changes to our ending financials. The significant changes were in food service. My numbers did not reflect calculated depreciation. We had that obviously for the auditors, so that number is included as an expenditure in food service fund of $163,000. And then in healthcare, typically we have a cutoff of trying to accrue any claims that are related to the prior year. That cutoff is generally about 60 days. Because they were still working on the audit in June, they wanted us to capture any of the claims accruals for the 24-25 year. So that was the only addition to the expenditures there. That was $187,000. So other than that, I would like to kind of close out this year and Our new auditors are coming out tomorrow. They'll be on site for preliminary test work, and we're ready. Pardon? Yeah, I am very glad to have this done. So is Matt Furlong and his team. I mean, it was a labor of love at one point.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with it, we can move to the consent agenda, and then we'll be back on target with our normal schedule this year.
Sounds
Any,
good.
no questions about that? Always nice to be able to put out a dumpster fire, Adele, so,
Yes.
yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Item 5C is the approval for the amendment to the superintendent's employment agreement that basically says Dr. Hartman will work for us for another year, which we filled out. So can I have you sure? Yes, and it does. It's updated with those new goals that we all discussed and he shared with us. So can I have a motion to approve that amendment to the superintendent's employment agreement, please?
I move we accept the amendment as presented.
Second.
Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Eby? Aye. Mrs. Brock?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Dr. Martin? Aye. Mrs. Fisher? Aye. Mrs. Kapka? Aye. Ms. Gibler? Aye. Mr. Gensel?
Aye. Thank you for that. Item 5D, we're pulling. So then 5E is the discuss administration recommendation of CFOO search proposals, and there are two that we were presented with. You want to take the lead on that, Dr. Hartman?
Yeah, so I shared previously with the board in executive content, two proposals we received for them. If you're looking for, I'd be happy to make a recommendation if you have if you are seeking a recommendation from administration. But two similar proposals, but with some differences, and I'm happy to discuss if you had any questions after having the opportunity to review them. We would like to make a decision here. The sooner the better, so we can get the ball rolling, even though it seems like we have time. We want to get if you paid attention to the timelines that were proposed, the earlier they can start, the better. So, one of the proposals in particular came in a little bit more cost effective, and it was with an organization we have some familiarity with, working with. That would be my recommendation, but obviously it's the board's prerogative and the board's decision. So happy to answer questions, field questions, or if you'd like us just to make administration to make a formal recommendation to be for a future approval, we can do that as well. It's not this is a service that doesn't require a bidding process or anything. We thought it was wise to seek proposals for it.
So do you need something tonight, or?
No, it's not on for anything tonight, just for discussion if there are any questions, and I'm looking for some direction on whether or not would you like us to make a.
Is there any reason why we can't make a recommendation tonight?
If there's
Board's
not, no.
ready.
Second,
Let's do a roll call.
unless you want to have discussion.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, we have it listed that the recommended proposal is going to the consent agenda for approval next week.
Right.
Oh, gotcha. Well, then if it's just
we can put
discussion.
it
So
on
we're just
next
looking kind of a
week's
straw.
agenda,
Right.
We need
If that's the direction the board would like, we can take that direction.
So
don't
we
need
can
to take
give you a
vote tonight.
directive to put it on
Yeah.
For the
the
consent
agenda
next
for
week.
next week.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I know in our discussions, because of what Dr. Hartman said, are familiar with Tom Templeton and his services, which hired Dr. Hartman, for anybody that's not paying attention, was very successful. We were very, very happy with him. And when we were looking at the two different proposals, and you guys had a chance to look over them, it would just be, we've heard a lot of positivity about the Templeton process, unless the board had any comments specifically about DevOPAR or any comments there, or anything that they thought was a standout versus the Templeton approach. Because if not, then the directive will be, we'll lead with Templeton. Everybody seem good with that? All right, there's the directive. So we'll get the Templeton advantage on for consent agenda for next week. That couldn't have been easier. All right, discussion of 100 policies review, which is back to you, Dr. Hartman.
Sure. So as part of our normal, regularly scheduled policy review cycle, this quarter, the 100 series was up for review. There were no PSBA recommended updated policies, partially because because we did the comprehensive policy review recently. We've updated a bunch of the 100s since 2024, 25. So there are no new updates. So we will have on, but we want it documented that those policies were reviewed by the policy committee. So we will have that on. We will have that documented that they were last reviewed. So we can add that to the 100 policies, even though they weren't updated. There is the next agenda item. We'll talk about policies that are there are recommended revisions or updates to.
So not really anything to report because there's no changes. Any questions about the 100 policy?
Is this the appropriate time to talk about 123.1?
That's the next agenda item.
Next agenda item. So I just want to make sure nobody's got any other comments about the 100% policies, because I think we had added this.
We had updated the bulk of the 100s just last year, so there weren't many updates.
And I remember we had a request at one of the meetings we talked about if there's no changes recommended that we would put in this type of an item. So this is kind of the first time I think we're seeing that. So just make sure you're okay with that. Okay, then on to the admin review of policies.
Sure. So segueing right in, two policies from the board policy committee being recommended this evening. Policy 716, integrated pest management, that did come from a PNN update from PSBA. Ken Johnson reviewed it. For those not familiar, integrated pest management is it's your policy that just states all the legal requirements we have for posting, for documenting, for communicating when we do any type of spraying for pesticides, things like that on campus. There's notifications we have to give. Ken reviewed it, didn't feel that there was anything substantive as far as updates. It was just some language updates. So he was comfortable with moving forward with the revisions. So that's one that's on. And then the second policy 123.3, which is obviously an addendum to policy 123. As the board is aware, that board has recommended that this is a policy that we reviewed. We've been going back and forth with Saxton and Stump and our solicitor, Jeff Litz, on this. And so it's up for discussion this evening. He provided the draft as requested, and it went through policy committee and is open for discussion.
I'm going to assume just first, that there are are there any questions about the pest control management policy first? Let's just get that one out of the way. I didn't think anybody would have any conversation about pest control. That was the first. The 716 is the pest control one. I'm assuming no questions there. So then we can open discussion for 123.3.
I have several questions.
Sure.
Okay, and my questions are based on the assumption that we're prepared to approve this. You know, if I'm wrong, I apologize. My first question was, were there any students involved at the policy discussion? No. I think we need to be more aware of that and include them more often for policies that have anything to do with student behavior.
We're not legally allowed to do that, I don't believe, are we?
I'm sorry, what?
We're not going to talk about students in a policy committee. I mean, we're legally not allowed
You
to
can
do that.
involve students in the policy development
ask for the
process.
student input.
Oh, student input?
Yeah, that's all I'm talking about. They're not passing policy. Okay.
I misunderstood, I'm sorry.
And my first question is sort of an overview. What do we do in a situation where a school district that we're competing with does not have this policy and has a transgender student? Do we play or not? This gives no guidance in that situation. I think at some point we have to consider that.
That's always been my That's always been my concern with who we play against, but that's not something we tackled with this. That might be something we look at in the future, but this was just for our teams, because there's a lot of schools that do have this. So like Hemphill, we know our girls aren't going to be playing against that stuff.
This is just for how
This
we
is
have
yeah,
our
like
team
you.
configured. We'll deal with the other later.
yeah, it might be a coach's game time decision, okay, the parents and the athletes don't. I
This
mean, that's
also-
something we can deal with in the
This
future.
also doesn't address how we identify the students. Is it self-identified?
I believe that will be, if the policy is passed, the administration will create regulations to decipher that, an admin regulation.
That was a question that was broached by a policy committee member, and we did seek counsel on that, and that was, Jeff Litz's recommendation was that that could be addressed through administrative regulations, and they could help us with the drafting of those. That's why, if you noticed, there was an addition to that policy about the athletic director and superintendent within, I forget the amount of days, I believe.
I'm concerned what we do if we have a question about a given student, or if someone files a complaint that someone doesn't belong on a team, handling that can be really sticky. So, okay. My next question is, we spent a lot of time before, and I had a whole file on this, but there are a number of policies that mention inclusion of considering sexual orientation. All of those have to be changed. And it's a list of, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them, including 123, which mentions sexual orientation, which we should delete. So I'd like to see all of those policies, addressed.
Sexual orientation is not the identity. They're separate. And a lot of the other stuff that's more academics, and no, we're never going to deny a child an education. This is sports, just
Well,
sports.
123 is sports.
Right.
And that one actually says extracurricular and social eligibility code. And it says that we do not discriminate based on sexual orientation, along with a whole list of other things. So
Right.
that should be removed.
Orientation is not identity. They're two separate things.
Correct.
Orientation is who you end up having a relationship with.
Identity
is
I'm not
separate.
sure if that policy says sexual orientation or identity.
I can guarantee it does not say identity. I can tell you that
I
right
would
now.
have to look back on them, but any of it would say search identity. But the policy itself, I had some questions on. Starting with the third section, authority. That's where I looked, where I saw that it referenced 123 and thought that the wording in that needed to be changed to go along with this. On, I guess, the 4th page, well, I want to do this in order. Part 4. Student participation on boards teams shall be limited to students of the male biological sex, provided, however, a student of female biological sex may try out for or participate on a boys team when a comparable interscholastic athletic team in the same sport is not offered. My question is, if we give girls the ability to try out for a boys team, and that would include, what, is it golf? I forget which ones are listed specifically as girls. Wrestling, bowling, and football. Okay, so girls may try out for those teams.
Correct.
Well, if girls have the right to try out for boys' teams, why don't boys have the right to try out
Because
for a
they
girls'
have,
team that they don't have listed for themselves?
because if you read above Section 4, it says the board's development of this policy is also consistent with the PIW bylaws and the U.S. Supreme Court's interpretation of Title IX. Therefore, we have to grant them that protection under Title IX. That was a discussion in the policy meeting, and that's how Jeff Litz returned with that answer. So you have to.
That PIAA bylaws that recommended, but.
Yeah, but it's still Title IX. They're still protected under Title IX to play a boys'
Well,
sport.
granted, Title IX only involves girls.
Well, yeah.
But if we're going to look at the whole picture, if we're giving that privilege to girls, why aren't we giving that privilege to boys for any team that's not available to them?
Because legally by law, we have to because of Title IX. We don't have to legally on the other end.
Well, I know we have
That
to
answers your
follow
question.
Title IX, but we can choose to expand it, to expand our rules to seem fair to both sexes. If the girls can do this because they legally can, why can't we just allow the boys to do that too? That
So
just doesn't-
going through this process, I asked almost the identical question that you did to this, because I think on the surface, that's a reasonable question, and I had the same one. How's that not discriminatory in its own right, right? So not saying, not taking a stance one way or the other, but the response to that through the process that we got was, that's why Roman numeral 5 is there within the policy right underneath there. To paraphrase, our solicitor, it's really because of that protection of Title IX that it's viewed that you can do that. You can allow girls to go out for boys' sport, not vice versa, because of what the intent of Title IX originally was. That's the response that I received. That's why some of the things are spelled out there
Yeah,
under
and
Roman
my-
numeral
and
5.
my
I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but that question was asked, and that's the response we received from our solicitor.
I understand that we do what Title IX says we must, but that doesn't mean we can't make it fair all the way around, and I don't think there's any change. But we don't apply this to intramural sports.
Intramural sports aren't regulated by PIAA or, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, once we have a guideline for our sports, shouldn't we follow that in all teams that are school sponsored? It just seems as if we're saying, well, we only do it when we have to. And I'm saying we should do it, the same with intramural sports as it is in our varsity sports. I just don't understand why.
I'm not sure what you're referring, intramural, I'm not sure how many intramural sports we have anymore we have youth
I don't
sports and
know.
club level sports that we have no jurisdiction over. Those are run by outside
All I'm
organizations
saying is,
typically.
once we have this for varsity sports, it should cover all teams that this district sponsors, not just some of them. And to say it doesn't apply to intramural sports doesn't seem quite right.
This does apply to all the sports that the district pays for. There is no intramurals, nobody uses that. There's rec and clubs, and they're the little kids, but that's separately funded. We're not paying for that. So this is for the varsity and the JV and those few middle school teams that the district does pay for. We do have funds for them. So that it's all the sports. All of them are covered under this policy. There's none left out.
Any teams that we sponsor
Right,
should follow the same guidelines
yes.
as the varsity. Now, if it's
Right.
an athletic organization coming in and having intramural
But they do,
sports.
but they do.
They
That's what
do.
we're saying, this does cover.
This does
covers
cover.
All
everybody.
of them?
Yes.
Yes. It's not designated
So
as,
we have no intramural sports.
no, they don't exist
They don't
anymore. You're
exist.
either in varsity or JV or,
Yes.
So if we
Junior high.
if we have no intramural sports, why do we have it in the policy?
I think it was just, they put in language just to cover if there happened to be any. But us as a district, we do not have any,
Well,
correct?
if there would happen to be, is what you're,
That's a hypothetical.
my point is, why talk about intramural sports if we don't have any? And
We can take that one word out of the policy.
Yeah, we can take that one word. I trust our solicitor, who we pay thousands of dollars to, can protect us under what he gave us. I think that's
Well,
good enough.
Well, I agree that, you know, if we want to protect us in the case that we would have it in intramural sports in the future. But if we have them, I'm saying any sport that we sponsor, we should have the same rules across the board. That's all I'm saying.
Can somebody
Correct.
show me where it says intramural in the policy?
In this policy?
Yeah, does it say intramural? Is that term used in the policy? I just want to see.
It's,
I see a lot of interscholastic athletics, but not, because if it is and I missed it, then,
Interscholastic public school code, where was I looking at? It's farther back.
just because if that is something
Oh,
we need to ask
Section
about.
4, number 3.
Okay. There shall be no sex eligibility criteria for a student to participate in co-ed, rifle, unified sports, track, or intramural sports programs that fall outside the scope of interscholastic athletics and is open to all students, or for a student to serve as a team manager for an interscholastic athletic team.
Despite what the rules are required, I'm just saying that if we have intramural sports, which you're saying we don't, but if any time we do, I think we should apply the same rules to everybody. That's all.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's it.
That was your list?
That's it, yeah.
Anybody else have any comments or things they want to look at about the policy?
No, let's keep moving.
All right, so the note under that is, whoops, sorry, I'm reading the wrong section. I was looking at CFO search again. Both of these policies are scheduled for first reading then September 22nd with the final approval by October 9th as it's written now. So look for the first reading. This will be the first reading, or the first reading will be September 22nd.
Okay, next week.
Or it would be next month. Okay. If there's no other questions, we have the tentative agenda for August 17th there. If there's any questions about that, probably not. And then this is the second part in our meeting for public comment on any district-related topic at all, if anybody wants to share. Any board matters tonight as far as initiatives or announcements or anything like that? No? Then I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight for executive session for a confidential student situation and item 5D.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, meeting is adjourned.